I used to think heartbreak ended when the papers were signed, when the house keys were handed back, the rings tucked away in drawers, and the word love became something too heavy to say aloud. But I was wrong. Heartbreak doesn't end. It lingers, echoing in the smallest corners of life. It hides in the sound of a child's laughter that no longer feels the same. When Sabiha, my ex-wife, asked if she could take the kids on a summer vacation, I hesitated. Every instinct screamed no, but the law didn't care about instincts. She had joint custody, and the children, Sophie and Liam, deserved to see their mother. I told myself it would be good for them. I even forced a smile when she mentioned they'd be staying by the beach. What she didn't tell me was that he would be there too, Eric, the man she left me for. I found out by accident from a photo Sophie sent me. Her, Liam, and Sabiha standing on the sand, and Eric's hand resting on Sabiha's shoulder. That picture burned into my mind. I wanted to call her, to shout, to demand an explanation, but what good would that do? I didn't want to ruin the kids' vacation. I convinced myself they'd be safe, that I was overreacting. For 2 long months, I waited. The silence between their calls grew longer. The kids' voices became distant, thinner somehow. I blamed the poor signal, the excitement of summer days, anything that wasn't the truth clawing at my chest. And then, one warm August evening, they came back. I remember the sound of the car door closing, their small footsteps on the driveway. But when I opened the door, their faces froze me in place. The light in their eyes, my children's laughter, their warmth, was gone. That was the moment I realized. Something terrible had followed them home. The evening they returned was heavy with summer heat, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes the air feel too thick to breathe. I had cleaned the house twice that day, cooked their favorite dinner, spaghetti with extra cheese, just to make things feel normal. But nothing about that night was normal. When the car finally pulled up, I stepped outside, my heart thudding like it wanted to break free. Sophie climbed out first, her little pink backpack slung over one shoulder, her hair tangled from the road. Liam followed, clutching a stuffed dinosaur I'd given him before they left. Sabiha gave me a brief nod. No words, just that tight, guilty smile she was like armor, and then drove away before I could say a thing. I bent down and opened my arms, waiting for the usual rush, the hugs, the chatter. But instead, Sophie stopped a few feet away. Liam hesitated, glancing up at his sister before coming closer. Their eyes were distant, guarded. Sophie's lips trembled when I hugged her. Liam didn't let go of that toy even when I lifted him up. "Did you have fun?" I asked softly, forcing a smile. They nodded, but neither spoke. Inside, I tried to fill the silence with the sound of dinner plates, with stories about the dog, with questions they never really answered. Sophie pushed food around her plate, and Liam kept staring at the front door like he expected someone to come back. That night, after they went to bed, I stood in the hallway listening. It was quiet, too quiet. No giggles, no whispering. Just a faint hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional rustle of sheets. Around midnight, I heard a soft whimper. Then Liam's voice, barely above a whisper. "Don't let him come in." My breath caught. I waited, but no other sound followed. The next morning, when sunlight spilled to the curtains, Sophie was sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at her cereal. Her drawings, usually bright and filled with colors, lay on the floor unfinished, all in gray pencil. Something had changed. Something had broken. They were home, yes, but the home I had given them no longer felt safe. Their eyes held stories they couldn't yet tell, and I had no idea how to reach them. All I knew was that the silence in our house had started to feel alive. And in that silence, I began to fear the truth I didn't yet know. When I saw the car pull into the driveway, my heart raced the way it used before a big game. Half fear, half hope. I had cleaned the house twice that day, cooked their favorite meal, even set the table with the blue plate Sophie loved. I wanted everything to feel normal, to make them feel at home again. But the moment they stepped out of the car, I knew something had changed. Sophie, my bright, talkative 10-year-old, barely looked at me. She clutched her small suitcase like it was a shield. Liam, usually full of energy, walked behind her with his head down, dragging his toy car across the concrete. Sabia barely said a word, just a polite nod before hurrying back to her car. No hugs. No, thank you. Just the sound of tires crunching gravel as she drove away. Inside, the silence was deafening. I tried to break it with questions. How was the beach? Did you make new friends? But their answers were soft, mechanical, like rehearsed lines from a play they didn't want to be in. Sophie said she was tired. Liam just wanted to go to his room. That night, as I tucked him in, I noticed the shadows under Sophie's eyes. She turned away when I kissed her forehead. Liam, half asleep, murmured something that made my chest tighten. Daddy, I don't want to go back there. I froze. Back where, buddy? He didn't answer. He just turned over and hid his face under the blanket. In the days that followed, the air in the house grew heavier. Sophie stopped drawing. Her sketchbook, once filled with bright sunsets and family portraits, lay untouched on her desk. Liam woke up crying at night, sometimes calling out for me, other times whispering, "Make him stop." Every sound made me jump. Every silence made me wonder. I told myself it just needed time to adjust, that maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. Kids don't come back from a happy summer looking like that. One evening, I caught Sophie staring at the family photo on the mantelpiece, the one from before the divorce. Her eyes filled with tears, and she whispered so softly I almost missed it. I wish we never went. That night, long after they were asleep, I sat alone in the dark, my heart pounding with questions I was too afraid to ask. Something had happened on that vacation, and whatever it was, it had followed my children home. The days slipped into weeks, but the unease inside the house only grew thicker. Like fog, it refused to lift. I tried to bring back some sense of normalcy. Movie nights, pancakes on Sundays, even backyard soccer games. But the laughter that once filled these walls was gone. Sophie spent most of her time in her room with the door shut. When I'd knock, she'd smile weakly and say she was fine, but her voice had lost its spark. Her once colorful drawings now showed lonely stick figures and gray skies. I found one half-finished sketch under her bed, a family of three standing together, a dark shadow looming behind them. My heart twisted. Liam, on the other hand, had become unpredictable. He would scream if someone raised their voice, even on TV. Sometimes, he would flinch when I reached to hug him. I started finding his toys lined up by the door every morning, as if he was preparing to leave. When I asked him why, he said softly, "Just in case." I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened, that my children were carrying a secret too heavy for their small shoulders. One night at dinner, I tried to keep the conversation light. I asked about the ocean, their favorite food, even the sandcastles they'd built. Liam stayed silent, pushing his food around the plate. Sophie suddenly stood up, her hand trembling as she reached for a glass of milk. When I said Eric's name, just a passing mention, she froze. The glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. Her eyes widened in panic. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "It's okay, sweetheart," I said quickly, though my voice shook. But she kept apologizing, tears streaming down her face, until she ran to her room and slammed the door. That night, I sat in the hallway outside her room, listening to her sobs fade into silence. My hands trembled. Something inside me screamed to go to the police, to confront Sabiha, to demand answers. But what would I say? That my daughter dropped a glass and cried? That my son was scared of shadows? There were no bruises, no proof, only fear. Still, I knew, a father knows. Something or someone had broken the light inside my children. And if I didn't find out what it was soon, I feared I might lose them completely. It happened on a Thursday night. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the old wall clock. I was sitting on the couch, staring at the glow of the TV. But I couldn't tell you what was on. My mind was somewhere else, with the pieces of my children I couldn't put back together. I heard soft footsteps behind me. When I turned, Sophie stood there in her pajamas, her face pale, clutching her old stuffed rabbit. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying for hours. "Can I sleep here tonight?" she asked. Of course, sweetheart, I said, opening my arms. She climbed beside me, curling up like she used to when she was little. For a while, we just sat there in silence. Her heartbeat thudded against my chest, quick, uneven. Then she whispered, almost too softly to hear, Daddy, I need to tell you something. I felt my whole body go still. Okay, I said carefully. I'm listening. She hesitated, her small fingers twisting the fabric of her rabbit's ear. It's about Eric. The name alone felt like ice in my veins. I forced myself to breathe. What about him? Her voice cracked. He wasn't nice to us, Daddy. I didn't interrupt. I couldn't. My throat had closed up. He used to yell all the time, she continued, tears spilling down her cheeks. He'd get angry at Mommy for stupid things, like if she burned breakfast or if we made noise. One night, he threw a plate at the wall. Her voice trembled. And when Liam cried, he locked him in the bathroom, said he needed to learn how to behave. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I wanted to shout, to storm out, to find that man, but I just held her tighter. You're safe now, I whispered. He can't hurt you anymore. She shook her head. It wasn't just that. He said if we told anyone, he'd make Mommy go away. That broke me. I felt something inside me shatter. The part that still wanted to believe Sabiha had just made a mistake. That she was still the mother who once sang lullabies beside me. Sophie was shaking. Mom didn't stop him. She just cried. Sometimes she'd tell us to stay in our room and not come out until Eric was done yelling. Liam tried to protect her once, and Eric grabbed him by the arm so hard he screamed. I swallowed hard, my eyes burning. Why didn't you tell me sooner, sweetheart? She wiped her tears. Because I thought you'd hate me or her. I pulled her close, holding her as if I could somehow squeeze the pain out her small body. Sophie, there's nothing in this world that could make me hate you. You did nothing wrong. Do you understand me? Nothing. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, in a whisper that barely reached my ears, she said, I was so scared, Daddy. And that was the moment I made a silent promise, one I would never break. No matter what it took, I was going to protect my children. And Eric would never touch them again. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there with Sophie in my arms, staring at the shadows on the wall until dawn. My mind was burning. Every detail of her trembling voice replaying in my head, every word like a blade carving into my chest. When the sun rose, I made a decision. No more silence. No more waiting. I called Sabiha. She answered on the third ring, her voice cautious. Farhan, it's early. What's wrong? I took a deep breath. We need to talk. Now. A pause. Can this wait? No, I snapped. It can't. Within an hour, she was standing at my door. She looked different, tired, thinner, eyes darting everywhere except mine. For a moment, I almost saw the woman I once loved. But then I remembered Sophie's words, and that image vanished. Where are the kids? She asked. In their rooms, I said coldly. And that's where they'll stay. Her arms folded. What is this about, Farhan? I stared at her for a long moment, then said, It's about Eric. Her expression froze. What about him? I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. Sophie told me everything. About his temper. About how he hurt them. About how he locked Liam in a bathroom while you stood by and did nothing. Her face went pale. She's exaggerating. You know how children... Stop, I said sharply. Don't you dare call what they went through an exaggeration. My hands were shaking, but I refused to lose control. They were terrified, Sabiha, terrified of that man, and of you for letting it happen. Tears welled up in her eyes. You think I wanted that? He wasn't always like this, Farhan, after the divorce. Things were hard. I thought he'd change. Change. I laughed bitterly. He abused our children. Sabiha, there's no changing that. She broke down then, covering her face with her hands. I was scared, she sobbed. He said he'd leave if I told anyone. I didn't know what to do. For a second I felt pity, but it vanished as quickly as it came. You should have protected them, I said quietly. You're their mother. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, I picked up my phone. What are you doing? She asked, panic flashing in her eyes. Calling child services. I said, and the police. They need to know everything. You can either help me or get out of the way. Farhan, please, think about what this will do to us. There is no us, I said. There's only them, and I won't let anyone hurt them again. Her sobs filled the room as I made the call. My voice was calm, almost attached, as I gave the details. Eric's name, the children's statements, the bruises, the fear. The operator's tone shifted instantly. They promised someone would be in touch soon. When I hung up, Sabiha stood there trembling. He'll hate me for this, she whispered. I looked her in the eyes. Good. Maybe for once. He'll fear something too. As she left, I felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion and grief. But beneath it all, a flicker of relief. For the first time since that cursed vacation, I finally felt like a father again. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of questions, interviews, and restless nights. The authorities came sooner than I expected. Two calm, kind-faced officers who spoke gently to Sophie and Liam, assuring them they were safe. Watching my children relive their pain was torture. But I knew it had to be done. The truth had to be spoken, even if it hurt. Sabiha cooperated at first, then crumbled. Her statements matched the kids' stories. The shouting, the drinking, the fear. When Eric was finally confronted, he denied everything, of course. But there were neighbors who'd heard the fights, hotel staff who'd seen bruises, a police report from a noise complaint that suddenly made sense. Within a week, Eric was arrested. The headlines didn't matter to me. All that mattered was that my kids could finally sleep without jumping at every sound. Still, justice didn't erase the damage. Sophie barely spoke for days. When she did, her words came in whispers, careful and fragile. Liam refused to be in a room without me. Even when I stepped out to get the mail, he'd cry until I came back. I enrolled them both in therapy, sat through the sessions, and watched as they slowly began to open up again. One evening, I found Sophie at her desk, drawing. My heart skipped a beat. It was the first time I'd seen her hold a pencil in weeks. When I looked closer, I saw what she'd drawn. Our house, the three of us standing together in the sunlight. The shadow that used to hover over her pictures was gone. In its place, she'd drawn a bright blue sky. Do you like it? She asked shyly. I smiled through tears. I love it. For the first time, she smiled back. Sabiha lost custody temporarily. Supervised visits only. I didn't feel triumph, just sorrow. I wanted to hate her, but I couldn't. She was broken too, not by Eric, but by her own weakness. Maybe one day, she'd find the courage to face what she'd allowed. But that was her journey, not mine. Ours was about healing. As autumn rolled in, the air in the house began to feel lighter. The laughter returned, softer, tentative, but real. Liam started sleeping through the night. Sophie began humming again, the same tune Sabiha used to sing long ago. Every scar left a trace, but that was okay. Scars meant survival. And for the first time in months, I believed we were going to be okay. It's been almost a year since that summer ended, yet sometimes it still feels like yesterday. The smallest things bring it back. The crash of a plate, the sound of the wind against the windows, the way Sophie sometimes stares off into the distance when she thinks no one's watching. I've learned that healing isn't a straight line. It's a slow, uneven climb, one where some days you reach the top, and others you find yourself slipping back into the dark. But every morning when I see my kids' faces, I know we're still moving forward. And that's enough. There are nights when guilt keeps me awake. I wonder if I could have stopped it earlier, if I should have fought harder, shouted louder. But then Sophie laughs. That real, unguarded laugh I thought I'd lost forever. And it reminds me that forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's learning to live with the echoes and still finding peace. Sometimes Sabiha calls. Her voice is softer now, cracked at the edges. She asks about the kids, tells me she's in therapy, that she's sorry for everything. I believe her, but I don't let her words rewrite the past. Some things can't be undone, only understood. Every once in a while, Sophie still wakes from bad dreams. When she does, she comes to my room and crawls into bed beside me, her hand finding mine in the dark. Liam, too, he sleeps peacefully now. His toy car is still parked by the door, but only out of habit, not fear. When I watch them sleep, I realize how much they've changed me. Love used to be something I gave without thinking. Now it's something I guard fiercely, protect like a flame in the wind. People tell me I'm strong, but the truth is, I'm just a father who learned what strength really means. Not anger, not revenge, but showing up every single day, no matter how much it hurts. Even now, when the house is quiet, I sometimes hear Sophie's trembling voice from that night. "I was so scared, Daddy." And I whisper back into the dark, "I know, sweetheart, but you're safe now." Because some promises once made are never broken.